Did you ever go down the beach and see these guys walking around like that? And they always look angry, you know, like. And the reason they look angry is because everyone says the same thing. Did you find anything? Go to hell, did I find anything?
They're always wearing Speedos and look like they're carrying marbles. You told your dad's story there at the end, and your dad, you had a great family. You talk about that.
Yeah,
you grew up with a wonderful family, and you got to take your dad all over the world. And you told me a story the other day about, I think you're on the French Riviera or somewhere like that. You're on a beach in France.
Oh, yeah, my father, yeah.
Yeah.
My father, he really was a tough-looking guy, but he wasn't a handsome guy, but the women just adored him, and he was a flirt, and they always flirted with him. And across the street was this guy, DeLuca. And Lou DeLuca was the best-looking man I've ever seen in my whole life, and they were best friends. And I was with my father, to give you an idea of what he's like, when I was 10 years old maybe, and we ran into DeLuca. My father was collecting the number bets and ran into DeLuca. And while we're talking, two women from the neighborhood, really dressed up, looking great-looking women, walked by and they flirted with my father. And they kept going, and DeLuca said, you know, I want to ask you something, he said. How come, you know, he says, you're like you got a great look to you, but I'm beautiful, right? My father says, DeLuca, you're the most beautiful man in Philadelphia, without a doubt. He says, well, how come when I'm with you, and a couple of women walk by like they just did, they always flirt with you, not with me. My father said, well, let me ask you a question. When you go to the bathroom, when you get done, do you shake it? He said, of course I shake it. My father said, I step on it. I'll see you later. So, this...
But that ain't the story.
No. So this man who was so cognizant of women and the attention he got, my mother she was called the most beautiful woman in Philadelphia when he met her. So he did marry a great beauty. But this man now is 90 years old, and I took a place in France for the summer so he could enjoy himself. He liked to gamble. He'd go to Monte Carlo and gamble and all. And we went to have a little lunch on the beach one day, and I had a girlfriend with me, and my father and I, the three of us, were sitting there. And we were sitting there a good 30, 40 minutes. And all of a sudden, my father, we're right there at the beach, right there. And my father looked, and he goes, wait a minute. All the women, their boobs. You can see all their boobs. I said, well, this is a topless beach. He says, they've been like this all this time. Jesus Christ, I got so old. I didn't see all that. I didn't look at that. What am I, old man?
You get the age, it takes 45 minutes to notice that shit. We know what that's all about. The story that I love is, and this was several years ago, we're sitting in the green room when that book, The Secret, came out, and it was about manifesting. If you believe something, if you think it, if you visualize it, then it can come true. And I had just read it, and I was talking about that, and you immediately went, I've been visualizing my whole life. I've been doing exactly that, but it was never called that. And you told me a story about visualizing this perfect flat in New York with your buddies, right?
Right, yeah. I got evicted from a house by my insane grandmother. This is true, and no, it is true. And we got evicted, and we lived in a house with no furniture, no heat for a year. I slept on the floors, and you know that was in my life. That's a rough part of my life. I was 9 years old, and I remember my father used the humor. I remember one night I was so cold. And I didn't want to complain, you know. I knew how rough it was for the whole family. I didn't want to complain, but it was really bad. And my father poked his head in and he said, how you doing, kid? I said, well, you know, to be honest with you, I said, I'm really cold. And he said, do what I do. Lay on your stomach and cover yourself with your back. And I never remember being cold again. That's the truth. So anyway, I started then. I made a list of things that I was going to do when I became somebody. I was going to be somebody. I was going to get a lot of money. I was going to get us all out of the neighborhood. And I was going to take care of my family. I was going to take care of my friends. I was going to be the guy to do it. And so I used to have all these fantasies. And I used to picture everything. And I used to describe the house I was going to have in Manhattan. I was going to have a townhouse in Manhattan, New York. One day, I'm from Philly, but I was going to go there because it's open 24 hours, and I knew I was going to be, I was that kind of kid already, so I was going to be that kind of man. And I would describe it. Every room was going to be different, and it was going to be this, and I would always tell it in details. And the guys on the street corner all hanging around, and I would tell them the story. And then, you know, and then I tell them again, and I add something new. I thought of, you know, hey, a roof garden. I'm going to have a roof garden. You go up there, and it's going to look like, you know, Cobb's Creek. That was our Fairmount Park. You know, that was our park, like Central Park. It's going to look like that, and all these things. And I was always telling these stories. So one night we're standing on the corner and Stan the Dancer. Everybody in Philly has nicknames, you know. Best nickname, ready? Best one was a guy kept his head like this. No, there was nothing physically wrong with him. No, I'm serious. I think he thought it was like cool. You know, he'd eat like this, he would dance like this. His head was always like this, and his nickname was 10 after 6. And I used to threaten him when he annoyed me. I said, I'd like to be 8:45. Just take that thing. So anyway, Stan the Dancer, he got his nickname from my father because when he would come over to pick me up in the house, and he would always dance. The radio would be on. He was a great dancer. He was always be dancing. And my father would just say, the dancer's here. And so he became known as the Dancer. So we're standing on the corner, a bunch of us, you know, Bebby and Dee Dee and all the guys, you know, and he'd say, Brenner, tell us about the townhouse you're going to have in New York, huh? And I would tell the story again, you know, and what I pictured everything, and what I was going to own this house. It was going to be on a famous block, you know, with famous people and all that kind of stuff. And I go on and on. And when I finished, the dancer would always say this, fucking Brenner, you know, and they'd all laugh. Oh, woo, you know. So, evolution of time, dreaming it, picturing it. After I took care of all the promises I made to everybody, and I was still living in a little apartment, and I was a big star. And I was living in this little, I moved up from the one room to a little 2-bedroom, 2-bath in the same building, but I could have had what I wanted, and now was my turn. And I got a townhouse, and I tore it apart. I kept what had to be because it was a historic block with a lot of famous people. And I designed it and had an architect and a designer work with me, and I did exactly what I said I was going to do. And when it was all finished, and I moved in, and I had a major dom, a housekeeper, a man, and I had a woman who was an assistant and oversaw everybody else, that I had the employees and all, I had the whole thing. I said, okay, and I called and I invited the closest of my street corner friends. The 5 guys, the Dancer, Bebby, Dee Dee, the Bird, you know, the best guys. And they all came up. I said, I want to show you something. Come up, and here's the address. They came up, and I took them on a tour of every room in that house, exactly as I had said I was going to do it. And then we got up on the roof, and I had this roof garden. And I had my assistant bring up a sterling silver tray with a sterling silver container with the ice in it, and a magnum of champagne, and it was popped, and she pours it into the flutes, the 6, you know, flutes of champagne. We each take one, and I was going to say to friendship, and Stan the Dancer went, fucking Brenner.
That's great. You have 3 sons, and you're as much a dad as you are a comedian. Maybe even more so a dad than you are a comedian. But wouldn't you say pretty balanced on that? And you've dedicated yourself to that. Well,
I don't think I'm not the kind of father like a normal father. I'm not a normal man. And
we know.
and so like I always I was a fun father. You know, I was always fun. The kids were always screaming, laughing. And then I taught them all we called them poor boy games. I taught them all the games we played, the beeries, the shoot the dead man's box, you know, pitching quarters. I taught them everything. And then we would play them, and it would rain. We'd stay in the house, and they loved the poor boy games. And you know, and then I took them out on adventures. We'd look for robbers in the neighborhood and try to arrest them. I mean, I was 7 sheets to the wind. But I never did the chores. Like when I had my first kid, it was an accident, and I had the kid, and then from one woman, and I was with a woman for 12 and a half years, and we were together. Well, at that time, we were together about 9 years, and she helped me during a big custody battle I had in the Supreme Court of New York City. It was almost 5 years, and that's when the career was stymied. But I won, and I won the kid, and that was the main thing. It was wonderful. Yeah, it's unusual. Because, you know, only 10% of men fight for custody. They know what the odds are, and only 10% of them win. That means a single fathers are only 1% of the parents raising kids in this country. That's what it was back then, anyway. So anyway, that's a real bad. It should be equal, you know. It really should. So anyway, so I fought for the custody of the boys, and that's what I think was my pride. But when it came to the everyday things, I wasn't the kind of typical father. For example, when I got divorced, you know how it is. All of a sudden, the woman inherits the traditional roles of the man, and the man, you know, conversely, inherits the things. All of a sudden, I'm cooking. What am I doing with a pan? I don't know how to, you know. So, you know, I did what my father did. I just put the can on top of the fire. You know. So I don't know. And one of the things, I made a deal. I said, you want me to have another kid? I really don't want one, but you want me to have one, and it's fair. It is fair. You helped me raise my first one, never knowing she was going to take me to court twice, too. I won't say her name. We'll just call her bitch. But
it's in Wikipedia.
Maybe it is. Yeah, maybe it is. I don't know. Anyway, I said, here's the deal. I'll have the kid. And then the second kid has to follow. You know, the first kid was, you know, I said, I'll have the kid. I have nothing to do with openings. Any opening. I don't take anything out of their nose. I don't put anything in their mouth. The tuchus, nothing. No openings. But I said, I will wake up in the middle of the night 50 times and comfort that boy. As long as he doesn't have to have something changed, you can sleep. That was the trade-off, but no openings, okay. First day I get the kids, I'm on my own, right? I'm divorced, and now I get the kids for my time with the kids. My boy Wyatt, who was then, the boys were 7 and 4, the 4-year-old, goes into the bathroom, and here's what I hear. Dad. What, Wyatt? It's creamy. I said, what are you talking about? What's creamy? I went to the bathroom, came out creamy. Oh my God. I said, now this is true. I said, Wyatt, all right, here's what you do. Move into the seat. It's an adult seat. And put your ass in the water and flush the toilet. And just sit there, just sit there. Now, when it stops, let me know when it stops, the water stops. It stopped, Dad. Are you still down there? You got your rear end down there, yeah. Okay, it should be filled in a moment. Flush it again. Flushed it again. He came out clean. I thought this would make a great item.
It's an odd way to potty train. And you named all your boys after kind of Old West names.
Yeah, I make Jewish cowboys.
Jewish cowboys.
The first boy is Cole, after Cole Younger. I didn't name him, but his mother named. She saw this movie where he was a glamorous guy, Cole Younger. He hung out with the James boys, you know. He was off. He once practiced his new rifle by shooting Northern soldiers in the back. He was a lunatic, but the movies made him. I think Gregory Peck played the part, you know. So anyway, he became Cole. The second boy is Slade Lucas, and the Lucas is a combination of Lou and Estelle, my mother and father, because they had passed away before he was born. So he's Slade Lucas, and the last one is Wyatt Destry. Yeah, Wyatt and Destry was Destry Rides Again. So I make Jewish cowboys. If you want one. I still have some bullets.
Do they shoot guns?
Yeah, they all were into I was into cowboys too, but David, there was no cowboy. Where's David? Let's get David. He's a good shot.
Or did any of the boys, and we've talked, you mentioned stories about them, and I know your oldest boy is a graphic artist now.
Yeah, he has his own little
the
company.
other two are 14 and 17, just trying to, not
go to
get
jail.
killed by you, as all teenagers. But do you think any of them, the other two boys, would be comedians or performers? I mean, with you. I mean, we were talking about this the other day. My daughter is starting to dabble in it a little bit. And we were trying to think of any comedians or comedy club owners or agents, and all we could think of that kids, and it was Pauly Shore and Sandy Hackett. But we couldn't think of anybody.
I don't want to say, they weren't what their fathers were.
No.
Only one. He left out one. There's only one offspring of a comedian who was a superstar, and he became a superstar. And that's Albert Brooks. His real name, last name is Einstein. And his father, you could tell the humor right there. Albert Einstein named the kid that. But his father was named, wait a minute. His father was, Parker Carcass. Parker Carcass was, great movies, great superstar. And he had 3 sons, they're all funny. The other one is Bob, the great writer. They call me Bob, the great writer. And the other one works in a newspaper in Newark, and he's brilliantly funny. Now, my kids are all funny. All my aunts and uncles, my cousins are all funny. That's the one thing that goes through the family, funny. So my 3 boys are funny. The middle boy is a clone of me, and I'm a clone of my father. He's a clone of my father. We sometimes will be together, and we both hit a line. Like, we passed a house, and they had a metal fence, beautiful old Victorian house. It had a metal fence that was in the front of the house, beautifully carved, metal fence with a gate. But it didn't have the other part that goes around the house. So we're driving, and both of us went, oh, that'll protect them. Simultaneously. Now, he is a natural actor. He went to the school in Las Vegas. He went to the Performing Arts Academy there, which is second only to the New York one. And the coach said to me, she said, you wait as a teacher of acting. You wait a lifetime to have a student like your son, and he won't put any effort into it. He's brilliant. He could go on stage now. I don't try to influence him. I tell him, here's the secret to life. And I believe this is the only definition of happiness I ever read or heard that I believe is true. Happiness is simplistic. Happiness is doing what you love to do in a place you don't want to leave. And I can track back in my life, and I could tell you I have been the happiest when that was true, when I had that combination. That's what I tell them. I don't care what they become. And I think that's, you don't push a kid into something. And I never brought comedy into the house. My boy, Slade, when he was about 8 years old, and we were living in LA for a little while until I got out of that damn city. And I don't like that place at all. Anyway, and he came home, Dad, and he said, Dad, what do you do? And I said, what do you mean, what do I do? He says, well, the kids at school, so-and-so's father directed that movie, and this one, he acted in this, and this one edited this movie. It was all show business bullshit people. I hated that school. Anyway, he said, so what do you do? I said, tell them, when they ask you again, he said, they're always asking me. I said, tell them that I make people laugh. I didn't even say comedian. I have nothing in my house to this day. You come in where I live, you walk through any place I've lived in, and when you come outside, they would say to you, we'll give you $100,000. You tell us what the owner of this house or the renter of this house does for a living. You wouldn't know. There's no, pictures of anyone, none of the awards I won. I keep it plain and simple so they grow up. They can't be on the street corner, and luckily they don't have to be. But I try to give them the same values that you pick up on the street corner, growing up as a poor kid. Because you get good values, you get good stuff. I didn't realize it when I was in the neighborhood until I got out. But you take some good values with you. Like every deal I have, every deal that I ever made with anybody, and anyone who works for me or worked for me, does it on a handshake. That's your bond. Now that's the way it was in Las Vegas when, I won't shake your hand. That's the way it was in Las Vegas when the mob owned Las Vegas. I worked there 20, 25 weeks a year for 13 years for all the mob families and all the mob properties. Every deal was on a handshake. Corporate America, contracts this thick, they broke everything. The mob never would violate what they told you. They told you you're going to get a car, you got a car. Whatever they told you, you got it. That's what they used to say. We have a deal? Yeah, we have a deal. Okay, you got it. You got it. And that's when we shake hands. Corporate America breaks every rule. All of a sudden, your name, the billboard is not at the airport. Agent calls, where's the billboard at the airport for David? He has it the whole time he's supposed to be he's at the hotel. We took it away. We got a restaurant we're trying to push. You're not allowed to do that. It's in the contract. Sue us. So what I'm saying is I learned that on the street corner. You shake someone's hand, that's gold, you know?
Do we have any, yeah, absolutely. Be glad to take a few questions from the audience, and when I hear it, if I think they're not hearing it on the web, I'll repeat it. What, back here?
Yes.
Yes.
How many nights a year do you perform?
Well, I used to perform, all right, I tell you, I performed. I didn't get paid every night. I would work out in clubs like Catch a Rising Star, the Improvisation, playing Pips in Brooklyn. I'd work out. I worked out every single night without taking a night off for the first 9.5 years I was a comedian. Then I cut back to 6 months spread out a year, and I would sail the world. I cruised. I was a sailor, and I would travel, and I'd love New York. I'd go out in New York, and I enjoyed my life. And that's what I did after that, because I learned something from someone. He once said to me, if you made twice as much money next year, at the end of the year, he said, if you make twice, I told this to you today, right? Mm-hmm. If you make twice as much money next year as you made this year, would you be twice as happy? And I said, yeah, I would be. and then he said to me, every year around this time, you ask yourself that question. And the time when it's no, stop pushing. And that's what I did. So now I work about 4 or 5 months collectively a year. You know, I pick and choose. I like what I do, so I do it. If I hit the lotto, you'll never see me again.
Me too.
Yeah.
I'm with you, yes.
When you were growing up in Philly, did you ever have a chance before you really hit it to work with Cosby, because he was a Philly kid too?
Cosby and I became friends when we were about 19 years old. He was not a comedian. He and I went to Temple University.
My class.
Yeah, right? Okay, he was in your class. So Cos and I became friends, and Cos, he was so funny. And we would hold court in this place in Mitten Hall where everybody would get together. We would hold court with the students, and the two of us would just rip everyone apart. And he worked in a little club on Broad Street that was a club that was designed really for mixed couples. And so you wouldn't be harassed if you were, you know, a black guy with a white woman and, you know, a white guy with a black woman and all that. And he was a bartender. He doesn't drink, but he was a bartender. And then he would get up on the stand and he would say, this is Flip Wilson's routine. And he would do Flip Wilson. He would do it. And then he started doing his own stuff. He was always so brilliant and funny. And then he disappeared. And I remember because he just had me. He was honored in Philadelphia, and he had me as the comedian. And I told this story. I said, I came in one day, and I said, hey, after about 2 weeks at school, I said, where's Cos? And they said, oh, Cos, he dropped out. I said, you're kidding. No, he dropped out. I said, he dropped out. Doesn't he know if you have a college degree, you earn $150,000 more in your lifetime? I said, well, how the hell is he going to make that kind of money? So Schmucko here becomes a writer, producer, director of documentaries, and he becomes the wealthiest entertainer. And he's a sweetheart of a guy. He's a great guy, and I love him. He's wonderful.
Any question? Yes, Jack.
Can you share us the name of your company and how that name came about?
Oh, my corporation is the corporation is called More Hot Milk Inc.
I have to sign his checks that way.
That's right. Now, why? As much traveling as I used to do, just coincidentally, I was with each of my 3 sons on the day they spoke the first words. Cole and I were in a restaurant, because I'm not going to cook. And we were in Serendipity, and he got the foot-long hot dog and the frozen hot chocolate, and the French fries. And the little boy's sitting there, and he's in, and then he just went, more. And then not Dad or something like that, more. The next boy was Slade, and I used to sit and have like breakfast with him when I was home, and I had a cup of decaf coffee, and he would reach for the cup, and I go, no, hot, and I would move his hand close so he can feel it. And one day, just in his little thing there, whatever that's called, where the seat comes down, and he, whatever it is, torture chamber, and he didn't go for it. He pointed at the cup. He said, hot. And the last one against Wyatt, we were in a restaurant, and he said milk. And I said to the boys when they got older, you should form a corporation and name it after your first words, More Hot Milk Incorporated, and you'll do something together. And they don't give a shit. So I changed my corporation name, and that's what I took. Yeah, so. Here, ask this guy here.
Yeah.
Which street corner in South Philly?
I started out at 4th and Dickerson. We're actually, I probably took your bike. They used to pinch the trousers. Yeah, I started, yeah, my grandfather was Nathan Brenner at 4th and Wilder, right there on the corner. And I moved into that house when I was little, and that's where I grew up. And then I moved to the West End, to 60th and Market area, you know? And then I became, in that neighborhood, I became something, I had something, after I was there, when I was there, 14 years old, I had something that no one else in the neighborhood had, a white face. Because my father, one day, a woman came in, this woman that was our neighbor, and we were the last white street, and then there was the big black ghetto. We were the last street, so I had black friends because I didn't feel like in the summertime walking all the way down to the Hollow to play. And I went and I made friends with the black guys, and so I had black friends from the time I was a kid. And so anyway, the woman, she was a school teacher, very beautiful woman, had 2 kids. I don't know about her husband, what the story was, and she bought the house next to us. So in comes this woman, and she says, are you coming to the meeting across the street? My father said, what meeting? My father was the most popular guy besides being the bookie, he was the most popular guy. And he said, what meeting? I said, we're having a meeting to do something about the problem. And he said, what the problem? You know, the people who are moving next door to you, we're thinking, what we can do, maybe we can all buy the house back from her. So my father said, Mrs. Kramer, what was that story you told us? Remember when you were pregnant with David? That was her son. You were pregnant with David. You told us a story of something they did in the neighborhood. Oh, you're talking about the time when I was laying in bed pregnant and they shot rifle bullets through the windows of the house. He said, yeah, why did they do that? She said, we were the first Jews. He said, you know, Mrs. Kramer, the last people in the world who should be prejudiced and bigoted are Jews because we've been persecuted thousands of years. He said, you go across the street and you go to that meeting and you tell everyone in that meeting, no one in that meeting is ever to talk to me or anyone in my family, and I'm never going to talk to them again. And so my father stubbornly stayed in that house. It changed. Our street changed quickly. Everyone ran, and it kept changing and changing and changing. And there I was, the only white guy. Now, I had no problems. There was no one beating me up for being a Jew because they said this guy is either he's not prejudiced or he's crazy. And I was both, so I came home, I had no problems.
Yeah, over here. Right here. You waving your hand there? Yeah. Yep,
yes.
You. Oh, you're pointing at the other guy.
Oh.
Okay. It's very rare that we actually have a crowd member that becomes a monitor for the other people in the crowd. It actually takes on that role.
Yeah, right.
Very nice. Over here, we can't see you in the dark. Go ahead. Fire away.
Oh, there it is. Okay, yes.
What was your funniest moment on Hollywood Squares?
You were on Hollywood Squares?
I took Paul Lynn's place when he went on vacation.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was the center square, yeah.
I know.
The funniest thing, well, you know, I'll tell you something interesting about it. I don't remember exactly what I was one of 3 people who was never prompted. I was never prompted. Like, most of them get jokes. You know, they have joke writers write the jokes out for them. They don't know what the question is, but they have the joke. Or else they'll tell you, you know, the idea of what they're going to talk about. I'm better off on my feet. That's how I work. So I wouldn't let them do that. And there were three of us who didn't do that. And sometimes I told Joan Rivers, who's the brilliant comedian. I mean, she's brilliant, writes jokes. I mean, great jokes. And we worked on the road 3.5 years ago. Best time I ever had on the road. She's so nuts. And I said to her, I said, Joan, why do you take the jokes? Just, you know, come on, you come up with a joke. That's it, you got it. So she says, no, she was like nervous to ad-lib. She was always that way, about nervous to ad-lib, and she's so funny. So one time we're doing Hollywood Squares together, or maybe a year later, I'm center square. We took Paul, was on a vacation. She's under me. She's on the deck under me. And she gets asked a question, and she goes for it. And she ad-libs, and no one laughs. And she goes like this. Are you happy now, David? This is great.
Oh, yeah, right back there in the very back.
Ron Shock tells a story about his worst ever gig. What was your worst ever gig?
Oh, okay, wait a minute. Tonight is the second worst tonight. The first worst was the last time I was here with McCurdy.
That's when I did 15 minutes before you. I got off early this time.
The worst, I'll tell you what it was. There was a place called the Gaslight Club in Greenwich Village. And this is early in my career. I hadn't done television yet. And I was with a very dear friend of mine who was the funniest man I knew, and that was Steve Landesberg, you know, who's passed away 2 years ago. And Steve and I were going, and it was all, at that time, it was a singer's world. It was not a comedian's world. And this is 1969. And it was folk singers. Everybody was a folk singer. And all these rooms were folk singers. And they would have a comedian and they would do this. All right, you want to go on? I'll put you on, but that's how much time you have to do. They do this. Yeah, you know, just do like 5 minutes. So, you know, that kind. So I was going on and Steve was going to follow me. Now, they're all the folk singers, and they're all there, and they have their managers with them, and they have their friends and their family, and they're all related to guitars and folk music and all that. And I like folk music. So I was watching them. And so when I came my time, I went up on the stage, and I said, you know, I was watching all you folk singers. There's such an interesting motif. You know, you sit there, you tune in your guitar, you tell the song that you're going to do, you told where you were when you wrote it, why you wrote it, what it means to you, what it's supposed to mean for us, what it's going to mean for the world. And I thought, geez, suppose a comedian could do the same thing. So then I made believe I had a guitar. And I'm turning the frets, I'm tuning it. And I said, I was living in Haight-Ashbury with this woman, Esther. And we had an argument. And I broke off with her. And she tried to stop me. The problem was, when she tried, she was in the bathtub, taking a bath. And she slipped. And she broke the big toe on her right foot. And at that moment, I wrote the following joke, which I called a broken big toe on Esther's right foot. If you heard it before, say the punchline with me. Right? It's good, right? It's good. They, not only didn't anyone laugh, they hated me. There was venom in the air. And Steve Landesberg, he was behind a pillar. He went, and he left. And I had to go up the aisle, and they were like hitting me with their guitar. And they forgot all about peace and love. They were, you know. And I went out on the street, on McDougal Street, and we're walking. I said to Steve, I said, now that was the perfect bomb. That's what we call it, the perfect bomb. He said, yeah. I said, look at me. Legs are working, arms are working, I'm talking, my brain's working. What the hell am I afraid of? I used to take a little tranquilizer to calm me down. I said, what am I nervous about? No one's coming out of the alley with a baseball bat playing, let's get a Jew. So I took that, it was called Milltown, I think, it was over the counter. I threw it into a litter basket and never was nervous again. I bombed after that, but I was never nervous again. That was the worst bomb of all. Yeah.
There's a Rabbi Brenner in Sarasota, and
He's a gangster.
It's the other brother.
No, yeah, that's a front. I don't think so. It sort of ended, you know, it ended, they thought I was going to be the one that carried on and, you know, because I'm a talker and all that, but I just never got the calling. I don't think there were two Brenner families in Philadelphia. They were the rabbis, and they're very, very, very famous. Of course, very poor because they were real rabbis. Yeah, my grandfather had a chance to sign for kosher food. You know, he had the white beard and he was an Orthodox. And he had a chance to do that and a lot of money. Now, he didn't think that any rabbi should be richer than any of the people who come to the shul, his shul. That's what a rabbi's supposed to be, one of the people, not drive the fancy new car and all that kind of stuff. So he said he would do it, and they offered a lot of money, which he would have used to help. And so he said, when do I come to the factory to watch the food being made? They said, oh, you don't have to come to the factory, Rabbi. We'll just use your sign, and we'll use your signature, and we'll put it on all the labels. He said, I can't do that. Now, the man who did that, I forget who he is, became a billionaire with the kosher, signing off the kosher food. So my Uncle Jay was the last of the rabbis, and I don't think I don't know Brenner, you know, what he is, but
no, gangster.
I think he's a Ganef.
He's over at Temple
But
Beth
he's a
hit
gangster.
me.
Yeah, he's a Ganef. He's not a Ganef. Okay.
Then we're wrapping up.
Someone else said. I saw someone say.
Was it back there? Fire away.
Oh, here? Yeah. Huh?
Comment only.
Okay, comment.
Okay, this goes along with your most famous silly sign. Riding down the New Jersey Turnpike, there's a great big sign, you can't miss it, black letters, block letters, 18 feet tall, bald tires kill. And then you said, what does it do? It makes you in your car.
I never told it. It's a lousy joke, and I never told that joke.
What the hell just happened there? Do you know him?
He told a shitty joke very well and blamed it on me.
It seemed to be going well at first, and then he went into some form of Tourette's at the end. I don't know what happened.